Time to turn my attention to the body on the Perkeo I. So I want to remove the top cover. Under the top cover I've got to clean the viewfinder and also make sure that the film advance mechanism, which is coupled to the shutter release, so that as you revolve the film advance knob, it unlocks the shutter release. And that's indicated here in this little window, where you'll see the little arrow changes from pointing in one direction to pointing in the other, like that. So I'm going to take the top cover off. Now, there's no obvious screws on the top cover. There's almost certainly something under the film advance knob. Alright, something just popped into the body. I assume that that's the piece that drives the take-up spool. Here's our advance knob. Looking at this, well, there's a spring in here which would prevent you from turning this knob in the wrong direction. That's interesting. Two pins, and obviously the flattened off shaft area at the bottom there, which grips this. Those two pins must couple to this ring here. Anyway, let's get this top cover off. On the appropriate size screwdriver. Put two screws here. Does the top cover lift off? No, it's still firmly fixed in place. Let's try removing this screw here on the flash shoe. No, still not moving. Remove the other screw on the shoe. This shoe off. Take these two strips out. It looks to me like the fixing screw was the one at the front. Yeah, the top's flapping. You can lift it off over the shutter release. What's holding it down here? It's got a little metal flap at this point which catches into a slot here in the top plate, and this little cover glass just fell out. That's the window that sits here in the top cover over those arrowheads, which tell you that the camera is cocked. So let's have a little look at this. I'll pop my advance knob back on there. I can get it to go. How does that couple? Oh, that'll only work when the top cover's in place, I think. Let's try the back closed, see if that makes a difference. No. But this must couple to here. What's it do? If it pulls that back, that allows this flag to move forward, frees up the shutter release, which tips this piece up over the top of this piece and allows it to drop back again. Alright, it's seems a bit Mickey Mouse, but it seems to work. See if the viewfinder will lift off. That's just wedged in there. I thought that was glue that I was seeing there, but it's actually oil. I'm not sure why that's there. There's just the front glass. There's no glass at the rear. The eyepiece glass here and the top cover is the rear element for the viewfinder. So what have we got here? Does this piece lift off? Oh, there's a retainer ring here that holds this ring in place. There's a retainer ring here, so I need to see if I can unscrew that retainer ring. That looks pretty fine. I don't know if I can get anything onto that easily. Not that tool, that's for sure. Let's see if my lens spanner would engage those slots. No, the tips are too wide. The angle of that is not correct. Will that drop down far enough? That will. Now the tip's narrow enough. Yep. Okay. That did it. I can unscrew that retainer ring. I'll just push that round with the tip of a screwdriver now. This is all quite sticky with dried grease. Lift the retainer ring off. It's got a spring underneath it or around it. Take that piece off. That's all very dirty. This piece, I bet you saw none of that. Unscrew that collar. Now that feels like there's a screw underneath there holding that. That might not have been a wise decision. I wonder if I can lift off this entire top plate. There's a screw here and there's a post there. I'll try unscrewing those. That screw's loose. There may be a nut on the other side of that and the feel of that. Probably is. Yes, there is. I may tighten this thing back up, I think. Let's see if we can tighten that thing back up. There must be a screw on the other side of that. Oh yes, it did tighten back up. That's good. I just recovered from that little faux pas. Now this piece, can I get this out? I'll winkle it over the top of that. Yes. I still can't get it round far enough to get over this piece because of this post in the way, which is riveted in. So this piece will only come off if I take the whole top cover off here. Well, I can see the posts under here that hold these two positions in place. I'll have a go at those. I'm interested now. I want to find out how this all works. So with the film cassette, the film holder out, let's undo this thing here and undo this thing. Lift that off, lift that off, lift that lever off completely. Those two screws are loose and drop into the body. They've got little flaps on them so they can be engaged with something from inside the camera. That means the plate's loose at this end. We've got one screw here, and as I've said, there's a nut on the other side of that. So I'll hold the nut with my finger and undo that screw. This plate lifts off. Okay, so under this plate, what do we see? Well, there's some oil here. There shouldn't be oil there. There's some rust staining. All this just needs to be cleaned. There's not much to it. And this is just the roller for the film to run over. And there's no other function there. Alright, all these parts just need to be cleaned with a bit of naphtha and then put back together. It wasn't as complex as I feared. And now that I've got this off, can I rotate this section? I can, and lift this off completely so I can clean underneath it. What a funny arrangement. Oh well, you live and learn. Some cleaning, I think. Well, I'm continuing to clean all these components up. I've just popped the front glass, the front lens assembly out of the viewfinder here, and I see that it's actually two pieces. There are two elements, one behind the other, and there's a mask, a black mask, probably metal, but possibly plastic, glued in between them. That provides this square sort of black frame, if you like. I'm not going to try and separate this. I'm just going to clean it as is and see how it appears to me. If it appears clean and good enough, I'll leave it at that. If I decide that there's haze in between the two surfaces of these two components, I'll have to disassemble it, which probably means melting the adhesive that's been used to glue it with some acetone, and then putting it all back together with a bit of lacquer afterwards. But hopefully it won't come to that, so I'm just going to clean this with some glass cleaner and see how I get on. Well, I decided that there was too much haze in between these elements to leave them as they are, so I've split it apart. And I can see that there really is an oily film on that baffle. I mean, I did say that there was oil underneath that viewfinder on that top plate at this point, where there shouldn't have been any. and clearly it had got into the finder itself in between the glass. It's wicked its way up and it's actually wet. So these surfaces all I have to clean well and then hopefully pop that all back together. I'll just peel that little mask off. That's plastic. That mask is plastic, so I don't want to be attacking that with acetone. It could end up in a sticky mess. Okay, everything's pretty much cleaned up now, so I can start putting things back together. See if I can get this piece in place. That seems to be it. That has a return spring. I can see which is the open end. Just hold that up to the light. That end, okay. See if I can get this in position. It was easier than I expected it to be. Oh, another pair of tweezers. Sorry if I keep drifting out of range when I'm doing things. Very fine spring. It's hard to manipulate the end of it through that bracket. That's it. That's done. Now what else did we have? Well, we had this piece. That was held in place with a screw from below. I'm just checking to see whether I need to put that in on the body when I do that, and I think I do. Just flip my film roll out of this holder. Yes, oh, that's how it works, okay. Yes, I do. I need to have that on the top of the body in order to do this. Let's drop this into position, pull that back, it goes around the shutter release shaft. That's good. Now there was one screw came up through here and held that top plate in place. So I will slip that screw up underneath the top cover. Which is considerably easier said than done. Oh, I know why it is. It's because I'm pushing it through two pieces of metal at the same time, so the holes probably don't line up particularly well. And that is the problem. It just will not go. That's better. And that's held in position by the edge of the body moulding there, I see. So I should be able to get this collar on the top. And I won't need a tool to hold it from underneath because I can just hold it in place with my finger. And just check that that's not revolved. That looks right. Tighten that screw up. That's good. So that's that top, our chrome plate here back in place. That's happy. This little piece. This indicates the direction for the little arrow indicator here, which indicates whether the shutter is cocked or whether you need to wind on first. Flick that spring back out of the way slightly. Now I've got to bring my screw up through the body here to mount this on, so I'm going to do exactly the same as last time. Flip this upside down, put the screw in place, yep, and it's certainly what I suggested. The problem was that the holes do not line up very well. Let me slacken this screw off slightly, give me some more wiggle room. Yeah, it's coming up. That's it. That's through. I'll check that that's positioned correctly. That doesn't come up against the body at all, so it means that there's nothing to hold it tight below. Pretty confident we're on that side. Alright, that's doing up. Check that moves smoothly, and it does. Tighten that one back up. Now I need to hook its return spring into place. See if I can get hold of this with my tweezers. That's it. That part's correct. It took some doing. This collar on top of the film advance here, that needs some lubrication, I think, and I think a little bit of synthetic grease will be the choice for that. I don't want anything particularly thick and sticky. And there's a collar that goes on the top, and the collar has also got a spring in it to provide some tension there. I'll just run a little bit of synthetic grease over that, and that I expect should screw on fairly easily, and it looks like it does. It's very easy to cross thread thin rings like this. You've got to be very careful to get the thread started correctly. If it feels tight, there's probably a problem there. Just check that this is moving. It's not moving as freely as I would expect. So something's not right there. I suspect it's that spring on the collar. Back that up slightly. I'm looking to see if the loose end of the spring has tucked its way underneath the ring at the bottom, and I think that's exactly what's happened. Check that. That seemed to work pretty well. That looks good. That feels good too. Now there's a screw needs to go through the top here, and there was a nut underneath on the underside, so I'll pop that screw in place, see if I can get that nut in place, which is probably going to be a nuisance. Little square nut. What would be called a pressed nut. See if I can hold that from underneath and start the screw in it. No, I've just slipped off it. Try that again. This pressed nut is, one surface of it's quite rounded and one surface of it is flat. Obviously the flat surface needs to go into the surface of the camera.